I've come up with a list of 7 common things that I think hold a lot of photographers back when they're first starting their business or when they're trying to grow their business. And I want to share those with you today, as well as some solutions and how you can overcome them, some of the steps that I've seen other people take to become really successful in their business. But before we do that, let me jump back and restart this episode. And we are live. G'day everyone, Mike Devery here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, episode number 100. I had to restart the episode with that old intro. If you guys have been listening for a long time, that was the intro that I had for the first 3 seasons. I've scrapped it in season 4 just because I wanted to jump straight into the episode and not have a specific intro to the podcast. But that was the intro that I had for the first 85 episodes of the podcast. And yes, we are here. We are at episode 100 of the podcast, and we'll talk about that at the end of today's episode. I want to jump back into a few things, and this is a very special episode for me. I'm recording this one by myself, and I wanted to be able to share a bit of value that I've had sort of gifted to me over the years, and things that I've picked up on from other people, but my own business as well, and my own journey of starting a podcast, but starting a photography business, becoming a photographer. I want to roll those all into today, and some of the things that I think are genuinely holding people back when they're starting any creative endeavor, but mostly photography businesses. I think so many people are held back by a lot of these things, and they really are simple fixes because we're often just stuck in our own heads about it. How about we jump straight in and talk about what I think is one of the biggest things that holds so many people back. I've seen it time and time again, people coming to workshops of mine, people sending me messages online asking me specific questions, and the root of them all comes back down to they're waiting for someone to give them permission to start. How many times have I received a message from someone saying, I don't think I'm good enough to go and do this thing. What do you think about it? Or how many times have I seen people go back to school for photography to try to learn something, to get a qualification, to then tell them that they're good enough? Or how many times have I waited for someone to see someone else do something in order for them to think, oh, I could actually do that thing as well? And I'm definitely guilty of this myself. I know that I was just like this when I was first starting, and I've talked about my sort of process of starting my photography business in that I saw other people around me succeeding in photography and trying it out and doing really well. And I thought, I've got those same skills. I could probably do that as well. So to some degree, we need to be able to see other people, and we need some sort of permission to know that it's going to work. But I think that there is a genuine sense among people who have been successful that you just need a blind belief that it is going to work. And a lot of people who throw themselves out there, who are on that forefront of just not looking around to see what other people are doing, I'm just going to throw myself in and have the belief that it will work, are often the ones who find a way to make it work, because they're not looking out for permission from other people, because inevitably when they don't get that, they would just fall off. If you are waiting for someone to give you that permission, if you are waiting for someone else to sort of set the standard or to tell you what to do, when you don't get it, it's going to be very hard. So you've got to some degree, just be really naive about what you can achieve. I was thinking the other day about when I shot my first 3 weddings, and I did those first 3 weddings for free, and I've talked about this story before, how I had never been to a wedding before I shot those first 3 weddings. And to me, I look back on that and I think that's just crazy that I went and did it. But obviously there were circumstances where I was trying to break into an industry. And so, of course, you've got to do one. You have to have one that is your first. You haven't never done any before you've done your first. But the fact that I'd never been to a wedding before, I'd never worked under anyone else, I just threw myself in and just wanted to get that done. Now, I look back and say, well, I was probably a little bit underprepared, and I was okay to be underprepared because I'd talked to the couples before and they were well aware that that was going to be my first wedding day, and they weren't having a photographer anyway. They were happy with everything that I could get asterisks on all that, because I get a lot of pushback from people online saying you shouldn't just throw yourself in there on another person's most important day and just use that to practice. Well, they were well aware that I was coming along to practice. They weren't having anyone anyway. Of course, you should be talking to the people first and allowing them to make that decision. You shouldn't be just throwing yourself in there and allowing them to hire you under the pros that you have experience when you actually don't. So make sure that that's well defined first. But the fact that I just threw myself in there came from not really looking around at what everyone else was doing. I think one of the biggest things that I did when I first started my photography business was not really follow any other photographers online. As I said, I saw a few other people in the industry, a few people who I was sort of friends of friends who'd started their own photography business, either in like family photography, or they did newborns and it was able to work for them, or they did headshots and it was kind of working for them. And I was like, hey, I could start a creative business like that. And I'd kind of seen those people. But when it went into the sort of wedding photography industry, I was trying not to look at who else was in my area and trying not to compare myself to where they were, because I think we can, especially as artists, get caught up in that comparison trap of feeling like we're not at the standard someone else is, so therefore we can't start. And that's not necessarily a reason why you shouldn't be able to start. Of course, they're at that stage because they first started. They wouldn't have ever gotten there had they not started. So we all have to start. Again, your first time you ever do something, there always has to be a first. And so you've got to be comfortable to put yourself out there. But I think ignoring other people around me helped me to have that sort of naivety that it would all work. Because had I had a look around and saw how hard it was, I don't think I ever would have taken that jump. Equally, I'm very glad that I never worked under someone else before I started. I think that I have the type of personality where I would not feel comfortable doing something if I knew how hard it was and if I knew what the standard was, right? Had I have worked under another photographer for my first wedding, I would have seen how much stuff there was to do, right? I would have seen how much sort of technical skill there was involved. I would have seen how much personality that person needed to give. I was a very reserved person who didn't really have a lot of skills in photography. Yes, I'd been doing photography for about a year. At that point, I'd been doing a couple of family photos. I'd taken photos of friends and family. I'd done like some other branding work as well. I'd done some headshots before, but hadn't really done a lot of professional photography. And so had I have worked under someone else directly on a wedding day, I think I would have gotten in my own head too much about it and just felt like I'm not ready to put myself out there on my own yet. And so I would have become almost stuck working under someone else until I felt that I had the skills to go out on my own. And unfortunately, I think that there are a lot of people in the industry who don't want to allow new people to get into the industry. And this is broadly amongst every creative field, but there are people out there who are happy to let you work under them, but then will just kind of hold you there. And I know a lot of people who've worked under another photographer for 2 to 3 years before they fully felt comfortable to go out on their own. And I'm like, as soon as you've done maybe 1 or 2, you've probably got the skills to start out there on your own. Yes, you may not get the type of high clients that person was working for, but you'll work your way up. And I'm so thankful that I never did that, because I think I have the type of personality who would have just become stuck under someone else, because I would have been waiting for them to give me the permission to go out there on my own, which is probably something that they never would have said to me. Of course, if I was a good worker for them, why would they tell me to go out on my own? There obviously are exceptions to that rule, and there are some really good people out there who are trying to build other people up in these creative industries and help them to kind of get out there and start their own business. But I think I would have kind of seen how much goes on behind the scenes and told myself that it's just not for me. I'm probably better off working for someone else, because I'm not the type of person that can organize all these 100 different things that need to be done in order to run your own business. So very thankful that I took that blind sort of jump at the start to just put myself out there and believe that it would work. Because I think you have to be comfortable in order to succeed in photography, whether that be you're just starting or you're trying to grow your business. I think there's a lot of times where we need to just have a belief in ourselves that what we're doing will work, and a belief that we know the right way to do things as well. Like when it comes to being able to price your work, I think that there's a big thing in that as well. Like every time you put your prices up, you don't really know what sort of price will work, but you're sort of playing around with how many people do I need to sort of book on this price based on how many people booked me last year? How much can I go up before I start to, lose too many clients in my sort of price bracket in my area? You're kind of playing around with it. And if you don't have a belief that you can increase your prices all the time, then you're slowly sliding in reverse. Like so many people have kept their prices the same for the past 3 or 4 years. Well, really you're going in reverse because everything else is getting more expensive, and clients are just expecting that when everyone else puts their prices up as well, and you're being stuck behind, and they're starting to think, hang on, why is this person now, $1,000 to $2,000 cheaper than everyone else around them? when you're out there scared to put your prices up because you're hanging on for someone else to tell you, hey mate, you should be putting your prices up because you're worth a lot more. And we have to be comfortable to take that jump. And you might be the first person who feels comfortable to put their prices up, especially at the moment when things are expensive and it can feel like a bit of a strain to want to be the first person. You haven't seen anyone else succeed at that price point in your area. But really you don't know. You don't know what they've tried. And so you've got to be someone who's comfortable to be able to take that jump, right? You've got to be comfortable to push that and try something new, because no one's going to succeed if they're not comfortable. If you're going to be the third or fourth person in your area to put their prices up, well, you're already kind of lagging behind and you're just hanging on for other people to set the trend. I think that the ones that are successful are comfortable just to try a few things and push themselves because they have such a strong belief in what it is that they do and that they know what they're talking about. This is my 100th episode of the podcast, and it just reminds me that, I took that jump when I was first starting this podcast. Like, I wouldn't be here at episode 100 had I never recorded the first episode. And I wasn't really waiting for anyone to give me permission to record that episode. Like, yes, I didn't have a big audience, right? But I still was like under the belief that I would try something and see if it would work. And I wasn't waiting to know that it would work in order to start, because you don't ever know. That's all part of it. You don't know what is going to work before you start, but you've got to have that belief that it will work. Otherwise, well, what's the point of starting if you don't have the belief that it will work? And I think one of the biggest things at the start is, like, when you're first starting, you're in a really nice space where you have that, you are a bit like naive about how much stuff you don't know. Like, it can become harder as you start to grow and become aware of all the things that you don't know. I think it's one of the real things that gets people in that bit of like a dip after their first year, is that they're now starting to realize, hang on, I am a little bit behind. There is so much to know that I don't know. But when you're first starting a photography business, when you're first starting a podcast, when you're first starting, creating content on social media, whatever it is, you don't actually know a lot about it. You're just in this blind stage where you're just going to put whatever out there in the world. And as you start to put stuff out there, you then realize, hang on, I didn't know that. Hang on, maybe I should do this. Hang on, maybe I should know how to price my work. Hang on, maybe I'm not putting enough away for tax at the end of the year. Hang on, maybe I'm not offering the right services here. Maybe I'm not delivering enough photos. Maybe I should be offering albums as well. Hang on, maybe my social media strategy isn't right. Or have I tried advertising on sort of Google and I don't have a website that's proper yet? All these different things are coming up in your head, and you're starting to realize how much stuff you don't have. And you realize how much you didn't know at the start, but you didn't know that when you were starting. You threw yourself in. And so you've got to use that momentum when you're first starting to just get yourself off the starting block and build enough momentum that you're already heading at such a velocity that when all those things come your way, yes, they'll slow you down, but you're already moving fast enough to just continue to move. You don't want to be going slow and already kind of out of it, and then you come up against these hurdles, because that's when they'll stop you, right? I recorded this episode of the podcast yesterday, and the recording didn't work. So I'm back here recording it today, and I'm only comfortable to get back here to record it because I'm already on such a trajectory that I know that this is the thing that I do, right? This has become so much part of my personality and so much part of my just job, and all the time it's able to be one of those things that I'm able to do. Like, I'm blessed that I'm able to do this, and I'm allowing myself just to come back here and do this again. If I was already hating this, if I was 1 or 2 episodes in and I was already hating the process of it and didn't think that I was up to a certain standard, or didn't think I was the type of person to be able to host this, or was hanging on for a friend to message me and say, hey, I really love your podcast, but they hadn't yet, and I was thinking, oh, no one's really interested in it, that episode didn't work, the recording didn't work, I don't really feel like going back there tomorrow, in order to record it again. I'm just going to skip this week. And then I'm going to skip the next week because it got too hard next week as well. And it can all of a sudden stop you. So you've got to allow yourself in the beginning to just be able to put those blinders on, to build enough momentum to then, when those hurdles hit, because you will hit that stage where you start to realize there is so much more to know than you actually do know. And it's one of those sort of, artists dilemmas that you get to that stage where you realize how much you don't know. It will hit you, but you've got enough momentum to keep moving forward because you didn't ask permission when you first started. Because had you have asked permission, had you had a look around to see how many other people were in this space already, or had you looked around to see how much you needed to know, you would have realized that there's way too much to know, and it would have all been overwhelming when you were first starting. I think that leads on really nicely into the second point that I think slows a lot of people down, or really stops people, to be honest, and that is that they only work when they feel like it. Now, this will stop you in the beginning 100%. If you only ever work when you feel like it, if you're only ever out there being creative when you feel like it, you're not going to be in it for very long, and you're not going to be able to build enough momentum and enough progress to continue on. I've always said that no one expects you to be perfect, but you have to be practicing. This is one of those things where, you've just got to turn up all the time and practice at things. And the only way to improve and the only way to get better is by practicing. If you only ever work when the inspiration strikes, you're never going to give yourself permission to actually grow, because you're never allowing yourself to be in those spaces to grow. And it's especially important when you start working with clients. Like, again, on yourself, I think this is why it's important at the start, because you really realize in that first year when you may not have enough clients, you may not have enough work yet, you may still be struggling to try to make things work. Everyone goes through that first year, and it can be really hard to try to get clients and try and get work. If you don't have enough self-motivation in that year, it's going to become exponentially harder when you've got clients, because in that first year, it's all on you, right? If you don't do the job, it's on you. So the only person that's impacted by you not doing the work, the only person that's impacted by you not going out and practicing your photography, the only person that's impacted by you not, editing those images and uploading them to Instagram, the only person that's impacted by you not working on your website or branding or whatever is you, because you have no clients yet, right? You're hurting yourself directly. And if that's not enough of an impact, if you're not impacted enough by you hurting yourself and your future potential, then when you get clients, it's so much easier to just say, oh, it's on them. Who cares if I don't get that email responded to today, or if I don't get those images out by the end of Friday? I can get them back to them I can get them back next Monday, because it's on them, right? It's easier to deflect it onto someone else. And I think you've got to build up that resilience in the beginning to say, well, everything I do comes back to me. And it's a direct reflection on me, and it's a direct reflection on my growth and what other people think about me. And so in that first year, it's like, no, I am the type of person who is going to get things done on time. No, I am the type of person who's going to go out and organize a photo shoot every Friday afternoon because I want to practice. I'm not just going to wait until a client emails me, and the only time I practice my skills are when I'm actively being paid to work. I think that's one of the biggest things for people just starting, is that they'll only work when they get paid to work. And I find that so crazy, because the reason we started this is because we enjoyed the work. But then all of a sudden, when it changes from a hobby to a career, you're like, well, I'm only going to work when I get paid to work. I'm not going to do free work anymore. Especially when people are a lot more established. That always is crazy to me, that you're only going to work when you get paid to work, because this was a job that you started because you enjoyed the work. So why wouldn't you just do the work? And if you're going through a slow season, we still need to practice. Like, I still go through times now where I'm like, I haven't worked on a job actively for like a month over the New Year period, or whatever the case may be. I'm like, I need to go out there and organize a photo shoot to go and practice, because you feel like you start to get a bit sloppy and you forget things. I forget things. We're all human. But if you're not going to be comfortable to go out there and do that work for free, or just to be like, hey, to some friends and family, hey, do you want some images done because I want to practice? Then it's going to be really hard for you to ever grow your skills if you're only ever practicing when you're getting paid, and especially at the start as well. Like, you've got to be someone who says, I am now a artist, I am now a photographer, therefore I am going to do this every single day or every single week of the year to practice to get better. Because ultimately, at the start, you're not that good, okay? If anyone out there thinks that they're the best thing ever when they're just starting, you're probably not, okay? Everyone's got space to grow, and we need to be practicing in order to grow, right? If you're just hanging on for clients just to come to you and say, look at my images, like, I want them to inquire with me, why am I not getting inquiries? Well, maybe you need to have a look at yourself and say, well, maybe my work's not up to scratch. Maybe I need to get out there and practice more. And if you haven't got the self-discipline to go out and work when it's hard, to go out there and kind of challenge yourself in new environments to try and practice completely new things, then it's going to be very hard to increase your skill set. And there are so many people I see in that first year that aren't comfortable practicing, or aren't comfortable doing the work when they don't feel like it. And so that just leads them to then falling off. Obviously, when you're more established, you can then choose when you work, right? If you've got heaps of clients, you then have the freedom, I think, to be able to choose when you work. You have the freedom to slow down. Ultimately, you're not going to be able to continue to grow if you don't continue to do those things that you don't enjoy, but you have the freedom because you've done it for years. When you're first starting, sometimes you just have to be someone who is always editing their images and uploading them online. Because if you haven't got any clients, then that is the thing that you have to do. You're not working for your clients, you're working for you. And so you have to be going out there practicing, editing images, uploading them to advertise in order to get work when you're first starting. And you're probably not going to enjoy a lot of that work because really you're not working for anyone. It's not overly that creative, but you've got to become comfortable with that in order to grow, in order to give yourself the freedom in a couple of years' time to then have a bit of time off when you feel like it, or to not do those jobs like immediately when you don't feel like it, because you have put in a lot of that groundwork when you're first starting. I talked about being the type of person who gets back to emails on time and being the person who gets their images out to clients on time. Super important, because when you start working with clients, I think this sort of becomes more important in a way. And so it's a direct reflection on you when you don't respond on time or when you don't get the images back on time. Now, of course, things happen, but unfortunately, you've decided to do this work for other people. So now they're expecting things from you. And so therefore you have to work when you don't feel like working. And especially if you've got clients who come back to you all the time. Like I work in an industry where I don't get a lot of like repeat clients, but a lot of other people working in industries where they do have repeat clients. How important is this? Like if you're not the person who is very disciplined with the way you do things, or responds on time, or is always there and is always like reliable, if you're not that person, people can choose to go elsewhere. And if you're not getting repeat clients, you've now all of a sudden got to work harder, because every single time you're trying to find new clients, rather than just holding on to the clients you have, because you do a really good job for them each and every time. And so they will just continue to come back to you for years. And I know people who haven't had to do advertising for years because they just hold on to the same clients. They've had the same clients for years because all the clients they have keep coming back to them, and those clients keep referring them to other people. So they ultimately don't have to do anything anymore because they did all that hard work in the start, and they continue to just do the work for their clients. And they work when it's uncomfortable, but they know it's worth it. And so if you're someone out there right now who's thinking, oh, I really need to edit those images that I haven't gotten back to that client yet, well, go and edit them, because that's really important. And especially when you're starting, maybe those are the small things that people are starting to realize about you that they're not going to then refer you on. Because when you don't deliver your images on time, that's the last thing that's in anyone's head. I don't care how good you were on the day. That was like forever ago. They've already forgotten about that. The only thing they remember about you is that last interaction that they had where you said, hey, my images won't be there for another like week or two, even though I promised that they would be there. And that can leave a really bad taste in people's mouths. So make sure that you're being very well disciplined on the things that you do. Always turn up when you say you're going to turn up, and it will come back in spades, I promise. This next thing that's holding you back is kind of a two-parter, so I want to share them hand in hand. And you might either be the type of person who is uncomfortable with criticism, or you're the type of person who is just trying to seek approval, right? And I think both go hand in hand. They're kind of on the same end of the spectrum, but sometimes can be confused with each other. But I think a big part of what we do is that we have to be able to be comfortable to put ourselves out there, right? Like I'm here right now speaking to you, and I'm going to give you what I think my own beliefs from my own head, and you may not agree with me, right? But I'm comfortable to put this out there because I believe in these things will actually help people, because I know that they've helped me, right? I know that these are things that I've gone through before, and I know that they've helped me, and so I'm comfortable to put these out there, right? It's the exact same with your artwork. If you're not comfortable putting your art out there in the world, then no one can ever think, I really want that art for I want that art for me. I want to work with that person, right? Of course, by being able to put that out there in the world, you're opening yourself up to some people who won't enjoy your art or won't think it's the best thing ever, and that's okay, right? There's probably 10% of the community who really love the work that I do. And to be honest, it's probably smaller than that, right? Every time I put it out there will be people who think, oh, that's just not for me. That's okay, right? You've got to be comfortable to put it out there, because in order to attract those people who really love your work, it needs to be out there, right? People cannot book you if they don't know you exist. And so to know you exist means that you've got to put your work out there in the world. Again, so many people get stuck because they're just hanging on for people to email them and inquire with them. but their work's not out there in the world. They're like, why am I not succeeding? Why am I not getting inquiries? Well, firstly, because you just created a website, but you haven't put that website anywhere. Like, no one is able to access that website. Like, yes, you may have it linked on your Instagram account, but who is actually actively finding your Instagram account? No one is finding your website on Google. No one's finding it on your Instagram account. Of course, no one's inquiring with you because they can't actually see what it is that you offer, right? Like, yes, it might be there, but people have got to go searching for it. You can't just rely on people searching for you specifically. You've got to put yourself in front of other people. And the hardest part about that is you've got to be comfortable with some people won't enjoy what you do. And that's okay. It's often the people who are very clear on what it is they do that will attract more people who don't like what they do because they're very clear on what they do, right? If I do everything and I try to please everyone and I'm trying to get that approval from everyone, then yes, everyone might think, yeah, he's okay, but I don't think I'm ever going to have a really like true fan who really vibes with the work that I do, right? But equally, I'm never going to have anyone who really like hates the work I do either because I'm not creating in that sort of style where anyone would hate it, but probably no one would really enjoy it either, right? To be able to create work that people really enjoy and to really have a style that you just do the one thing all the time, every time, right? You have a really, really distinct style where people are like, I really enjoy that work. Of course, you're going to therefore open yourself up to people on the other end who won't really love what you do. And that's okay, right? But I think we need more people who just are very clear on what it is that they do, what it is that they offer. And I'm going to go put that out there in the world and just be comfortable that some people may not enjoy that. Some people might not like that particular style. And I think it's hard for us as artists to choose a style. Like, I've gone back and forth on this before with other photographers choosing an editing style or choosing, a type of client that they work with or choosing a style that they like work in. Like, how many photographers want to do everything? Just being comfortable to choose a particular style and just being able to do that all the time and have people know you for that. Of course, some people won't enjoy that, but when they come to think of that, they go to you for that one thing. Because you're the expert in that one field, because you do that thing way better than anyone else. Of course, if they're not looking for that one thing, they're going to go to someone else, right? Like, for me, no one's coming to me for like newborns, right? No one's coming to me when they have a newborn and they want some images done because I don't do that, right? Of course, people would hate my like newborn work because I don't do newborn work, right? If I started to share some newborn images, people would be like, oh, this isn't so good. That's cool because I don't do that, right? But for the work that I do, I have a very distinct audience of people who like the work that I do. Right? It's the same with me creating stuff online. Like, there would be some people who really love everything I do. They really like the things that I talk about. They like the personality, that they like the way that I present it. Other people, it just might not work for them. And that's okay. You don't have to have everyone appreciate what you do. But you've got to be comfortable to put it out there in order for the people who really do enjoy what you do to be able to find your work. And so you've got to get comfortable with people not enjoying your work, with people giving you that critique, okay? And you also have to learn how to ignore it. But people will be open with you and people will be honest with how they feel. But you've just got to be super strong. Again, goes back to the first one. You've got to believe in what you do and you've got to be comfortable to put it out there. I get so many messages from people online who tell me that they really want to put themselves out there online and they know that they should be creating content online to be able to attract new clients, but they don't know how or they don't feel comfortable to put themselves out there online. Or equally, there's other people who just argue that they don't feel that they have to put things out there online. It's unfair, however, and that they're not comfortable to put themselves out there online and they want to be able to do things another way. I think that a lot of people would start creating their own content if they just didn't care what other people had to say about them or they didn't feel that they needed that approval from other people. Because I genuinely think that if you're just being yourself and you're comfortable with who you are, then you don't care what people's critique on you is. I know a lot of older photographers in the industry who've been around for a long time are trying to like shift to creating more content online. They're like, I don't know what to talk about. I'm not up with the like trends of today or up with what to talk about. And I'm like, just talk about you and your own experiences because you've got a whole breadth of experiences that these people who are 18 to 25 don't really have. If you just talk from your perspective, then you're going to attract those people who appreciate that. Like, I think that when I was first starting creating content on social media, I came about it with a very different style of like, look, I'm going to slow down my content. I'm going to do really in-depth explainers and I'm going to be really like selective on the types of things that I talk about, because I wanted to go in depth about a certain thing and explain things really well, because the type of content that I was seeing online at the time was very like surface level stuff that wouldn't really explain what they were talking about, and it would just be this sort of really high energy sort of stuff that I was like, wow, this is way too much, and I don't like that type of content. Like anything that just edits super hard and just like cuts between clips all the time, I just can't, like, just that's just not for me, right? I'd much rather sit down and listen to an hour-long podcast episode of someone here just like talking to the screen than have to sit through that high energy, like cut. I can't deal with an explainer that way, and especially when they don't actually explain anything anyway. So I was like, yes, that works for that audience. Like there are a type of people who that works for them, but for me, I need someone who's just a bit more relaxed and is going to explain something a bit more in depth. So that's what I started to do. And I was like, I didn't really know if it was going to work, but eventually I start to get people who say, I really appreciate this style because I just needed someone to explain things in a way that I understood. Or I get people who say that I have never had anyone explain it to me like this before. Or other people who just really appreciate the more slow and relaxed approach. Or people who really appreciate the more in-depth approach of like, can actually see that you know what you're like talking about. And that's kind of not to say the other people don't know what they're talking about. They're just creating for a completely different audience. And I think if we were just comfortable to say, well, what do I enjoy? What is it that I think that I'm very good at? Or what is it that I really resonate with? And just do that. Just kind of talk about your genuine experiences. Then you can't be annoyed by people having critique on that, because it's just you. And if they don't like that, they can go elsewhere. There are a heap of other people online. But so many people have stopped themselves from being out there because they think that they have to fit into this style that has been created on Instagram over the past couple of years. They think that they have to be this, type of over-the-top extrovert ADD type person, because that's all that's portrayed. Because all the introverts are way too scared to be on Instagram, right? So we don't really see many of them, but they are out there. And so if you just started creating for that, a lot of the consumers on Instagram are introverts. So if you just started creating in that way, you'd probably be able to find an audience of them, because they're out there. They're just not the ones that respond all the time. And that's what I always think. Like, I'll get so many videos with like thousands of likes on the video, but like 5 people comment and kind of say really bad things, like that they didn't really agree with it or they didn't like the style of the video. But in my head, I'm thinking thousands of people have liked this video. Therefore, there are thousands of people out there who just aren't the type of people who respond, but have really appreciated this, right? They wouldn't go to the effort to like a video that they didn't like, but they probably really appreciate it, but just aren't the type of person who will comment on a video. Like, I'm not that type of person either. Like, I'll just have a look at content. I won't often respond. I'm often not the person who like actively looks at what other people have to say about content. I'll just be like, I enjoyed it, I'm on to the next thing. Right? And I think there are a lot of those consumers out there who will appreciate your content, but just won't actively come and say that they do. But you'll get held back by the 2 people who said, hey, this isn't for me. And I think we've stopped ourselves being able to grow because we're too scared to put ourselves out there. And again, if people don't know we exist, they cannot book you. If they don't know you're there, they can't book you. Having a good website isn't enough. Having a good portfolio isn't enough if no one knows it exists. I don't care how good your work is. If no one knows you exist, they cannot book you. So making sure that you are putting yourself in spaces to be found by other people. And that does not need to be online. That can be in person as well. You could go to like every expo and go and have a chat to people if that's your style. That just isn't my style. But if that's your style, feel free to go and do that. However you want to advertise your business, you just need to put yourself out there in some way, okay? And of course, people aren't going to always enjoy what you do, but you'll find that audience of people who really do, but you've held yourself back from finding that audience because you're too afraid to start. Number 4 on my list of things that are holding you back as a photographer is having photography be your identity. And I put this on the list because I think it's one of the things that held me back for a long time and probably still does to this day, is that I started photography because it was a hobby that I really enjoyed and then transitioned it into a career, into a business, but photography was still my whole identity. And so I didn't, for the first few years, have a lot of things outside of photography that I did, right? So every time my photography would go bad, I would internalize that as I am bad. Every time a client wouldn't respond to an email, therefore I am bad. Every time a photo shoot didn't quite go to plan, I'm a bad person. Every time my editing style was starting to look a little bit weird, or every time someone had something to say about me online, I'm a bad person. Rather than just, I had a bad day, or my photography style isn't working for that person, or that person didn't respond to my email because they had heaps of other things on. Right? I was internalizing everything because photography was just who I was. I was the photographer and I was everything. So anytime anything would go bad, it was on me. And I think that's a hard place to be in. And it's not a place you should be. Like, you should have something outside of this. You should realize who you are as a person outside of your photography, because you are going to have ups and downs. Okay, I'm here to tell you that there will be ups and downs. There will be some times when you don't get a heap of inquiries. There'll be other times when you don't hear back from people. There'll be times when you go out to do a photo shoot and you had a plan, but the plan had to go out the window and it probably didn't go right. Or there'll be times where your images, aren't up to standard. You just had an off day. That's okay, but it's not a reflection on you as a human being. I think we need to be able to have things outside of photography. Like, it's a really strength at the start to have photography as something that you really love, right? Because I think you'll go much further than people who don't love photography or are just starting a photography business because they thought that there was income in it. Like, I know those people who are just starting because they think that they see a good business opportunity to be able to start a photography business because there aren't any others in their area, and they think, I could do that. And they're not in it for the skill or the sort of love of photography. They're in it to start a business. And yes, those people might do all right in the start, but they'll get burnt out eventually because they don't really enjoy it anyway. Whereas other people who really love the skill of photography will stay in it for a lot longer, right? But I think they have more ups and downs because they're more impacted by everything that goes wrong, or everything in their business that happens is a reflection on them. And so I think we have to be able to split these things off and find an identity outside of photography, and especially as we start to, share more of our personality in our photography, as more people start to book photographers based on their personality and who they are, which I think is really important because a lot of, 80% of the work that I do is working with a client, right? If I'm not a good person to hang out with, then why would you want to book me as your photographer? Because we spend a lot of time together, right? If people don't sort of gel with my personality, then I don't want them to work with me because we're probably not going to produce really good images. I don't want us to end up in a situation where we just aren't the same person and I want to create these images and I want to do this type of thing and you are over here and you're like, hang on, I'm not that person. I want to do this, and we're not going to work together. I want people who really understand my personality and who are my type of people. Like, I've always worked with, more introverted type of people because I would define myself as an introvert and I'm not this big extroverted person. And I equally, if I was going to hire a photographer, I wouldn't want a big extroverted person because I want someone who is more on my energy, who I can feel okay with. I don't want someone just walking in and like screaming at me because that would just make me feel uncomfortable from the start. So again, finding your personality I think is important, but it becomes hard when we're betraying our personality online to try to find clients. So then our personality becomes infused with what it is that we do in photography and in our businesses. It can almost feel like it's hard to get away from it in a sense. Like, even if we have something else outside of our photography, that's what we've become sort of known for. And so we've got to find a way to separate what it is that we do, because we can't always feel like every time we have an off day, it's a reflection on us. You need to be able to invest in who it is that you are as a person, whether you're always the person who will turn up for people, whether you're always the person who will sort of go the extra mile, whether you're a kind and caring person, these types of things outside of your photography, just understanding who you are as a person, and just to know that, hey, I did everything that I could have on that day. I tried my best, and it isn't always going to go to plan, and it's not a reflection on me. It's just, I just have those days. Everyone has off days, but you can't allow that to then turn into a spiral, because so many people have had an off day where then they've allowed that to kind of stop them forever, and just to put that as a reflection on them. I was talking to someone recently who said they went to a wedding last year and it all didn't go right. Like, the plan kind of went off the rails. They didn't really talk to the client before and didn't have a good understanding of what was going to happen. And so they didn't get the images that they were expected to get. Then the client was unhappy with the images at the end because expectations weren't right up front. And then they kind of took that as more a personal attack on them rather than just understanding that the situation was kind of bad. And their client kind of didn't understand from the beginning, and they didn't get all the information off the client, and then the client wasn't happy in the end, but it wasn't really on the photographer, right? Of course, we've got to do more work, and yes, they were just starting, so they may have not been aware of this. But if you don't give yourself the permission to grow from that experience and instead just say, hey, I'm really bad, maybe this photography thing's not for me, then you're never going to give yourself a chance to like redeem yourself or to learn from that experience. Like I've had so many things that have gone wrong before in the past, but they're not like failures for me. They're ways that I can learn and grow my business and grow my skill set, because I now know what it's like to work with an extroverted person. I now know what it's like to work when I don't have all the information and I'm just thrown in to things when the plans do go all over the place and I have to just come up with things on the fly. I know how to do that now because I've had to do it before. But on that first time, yes, it didn't go exactly to plan because there was no plan. But if I just said, hey, maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I didn't work the best in that scenario, I'm never giving myself a chance to learn from those things. Like we've got to take those things on and learn from them and grow with them, and not just say that it's a reflection on you, so therefore you're not that type of person anymore, because we already get enough in our own heads and stop ourselves from being out there, from sharing our work because we don't think it's that good, or sharing our personality because we don't think we're that interesting, let alone being in our own head and saying, well, that last time I worked for that client, it didn't quite go right, therefore I'm a bad person, therefore I'm not a good enough photographer, therefore I'm not the right person for this job. Of course, then you're never going to advertise yourself, and you're probably not going to survive very long when you start to get into that headspace, because that can be a spiral. So I think as much as we can do to remove our photography from our sense of who we are or from our personality, I think the better, because you've got to be comfortable to walk away from this at the end of the day and understand you can have off days, like we all do. But you've got to be able to bounce back from that and not have everything be a personal attack on you. I think this next point is one that I just wish I could tell to so many people in photography, but like broadly as a whole as well. I think everyone needs to learn this. And I think that is, too many people get defensive about their own work or the things that they do, and they don't take accountability for their actions. I think what's one of the most harmful things when running a photography business is you being defensive about everything that happens. And like we've talked about before, you need to be sure on what it is that you do, right? You need to have that belief in what it is that you do. But when things go wrong, you can't get defensive. I see so many people, when things go wrong, immediately jumping to blaming someone else rather than understanding that it's all on them at the end of the day. Like, yes, you can blame the Instagram algorithm for not sharing your images around. Yes, you can blame your client for, not being happy with your style. Yes, you can blame your client for not responding to your emails or not being happy with your prices. Or you can realize that that's just a reflection of what people are after. Like, people book the work that they want. And so if you're not offering something that people want, then it's not on them, it's on you to change that. All right? It's on you to change your prices to fit with whatever people are comfortable to pay for what it is that you offer. There are so many people who are just like, I'm just going to have this price. And they've just kind of pulled that out of the air. But they don't realize that the work they're portraying isn't sort of equal with the price that they're at, right? And they're trying to force their way into like a market and blaming the market almost for not wanting to adapt to where they're at. Rather than realizing that, yes, you may be able to charge this if you didn't live in this part of the world, but that's not the reality. You do live in this part of the world, and you can't get away with charging that in your area. So either you have to like move or be comfortable to charge the price that people are happy to pay in that area, right? Or just be comfortable to admit that, hang on, maybe my work's not at the standard that people are expecting for that type of work. I get a lot of people saying that they want to move up into a different sort of price bracket. They want to move up to a different type of client. but they have never worked with that client before. They're like, why am I not getting inquiries from that person? Like, why isn't my ideal client reaching out to me, right? It's not your ideal client's problem that they're not reaching out to you. It's your problem. How can you try to attract them more? Is it just that your work doesn't resonate with them enough? Is it that, your style of working isn't the way that they expect to work? Are you just advertising in the wrong place, but you've become defensive that it's their problem, not yours, to work that out? I often think about this when, clients come back to you and say that they're not happy with the way the images were edited, for example. Like, I will always, if there was uncertainty on what it is that they were going to get, I think expectations are huge in the start. But if a client ever comes back to me and says they're not happy with the images, I will always go out of my way to make sure that they're happy with them, right? I'm never going to blame them for saying, how dare they come back to me and say that they're not happy with the work? Like, this is my style. Obviously, there was something wrong with the expectations there that were at the start. And so it's on me to actually change that and to help them to be able to get that done. Right? I'm going to go out of my way to help them. I'm not going to get defensive and say, well, this is my style. You can be happy with it or not. I'm going to say, well, what is it about that? And how can I help you? How can we help to come to solve that problem? Because ultimately they've come to you for a service. If they're not happy with what they got, it's on you to try to help them to become happy or to explain the process. Or maybe there was just a little bit like a misunderstanding. Like often we'll blow it out of proportion where a client will come back and say they're not happy with the images, but really it's just they're not happy with one particular image where they had like stray hairs in the image and I didn't edit them out, right? And it's in one or two images, but they'll just say that they're not happy with the images because it was that one that they were really after. Or I forgot to include an image in there. Like a lot of photographers love to get outraged when clients ask for their RAW files, but often it's because you forgot to include an image and they want all the images because they don't know what RAW files are. They're often just asking for all the images because you forgot to include one of like them and their grandparents. But rather than just asking for those few images, they're like, oh, it would just be easier just to ask them for all their images and then I can go through them because I don't want to hassle them. If you get defensive and say, no, I don't give out my raw images and like, no, this is it, I gave you what you wanted, then all of a sudden then they start to get angry and annoyed and you become bad in their eyes. Rather than just asking, well, hey, why is it that you want those raw images? Were there other images that I didn't include or were you not happy with the way they were edited or however the case may be? Like, ask them. Just be open to helping people. You can't get defensive on these types of things. And I think it's the exact same with like when people say that they don't get enough clients or that clients don't respond to them or whatever, or they're not getting enough inquiries and they're blaming the world. It's like, yes, we can be annoyed that you may not be able to get the same amount of inquiries that you can today as you could like 10 or 15 years ago. Like, yes, you may need to actually put your personality out there in the world. And yes, I can be annoyed at that, or I can just adapt and change, right? If you're going to become defensive and say, well, why isn't it how it used to be? Well, you maybe have outstayed how long you should be here for, right? You've probably you've been in this for too long where it's starting to annoy you that you've had to change. Everything changes and evolves. Like we've all got to change with the times and keep up with what clients are after. And if we're not happy to do that, we need to be able to go and find new clients or we just need to stop, right? And I think as soon as you start becoming defensive, it's a red flag to say that, well, maybe I need to change something about this, or maybe I need to have a break, or maybe I need to go and find new clients, because you can't become defensive to your clients because ultimately when clients ask you things, they're unsure. It's your job to educate them. It's your job to help them. And if they don't want your work, especially when they're not inquiring with you, it's not their fault. It's your fault because you're not offering something that they want. So maybe you have to have a look at what you're offering in order to help your clients rather than thinking that they're there to help you. Okay, number 6 is something that I think we all know really well, and it's actually something that stops a lot of people, is having financial stress or having any type of money anxiety. When you're first starting, there is going to be financial stress, right? You may not make any money in your business for the first year to 2 years, right? And that's just the reality of how it'll be, unless you've been playing this out for years. Like if you're just throwing yourself in and you're just a creative person who wants to start something, yes, you may not make much in the first year. right? Hopefully by the end of the year, you can start to like break even and you can look towards year number 2. But in the first year, you're going to have a lot more expenses than income probably, right? And unless you've got a backlog of clients that you can pull from elsewhere, you're going to spend most of that first year advertising, building up your gear, like being able to pay for insurance, registration, whatever. There's going to be a lot involved in that year and you may not get a lot of clients straight off the bat. So you've got to have some way to be comfortable. And I think that this actually stops a lot of people in the first year because they didn't give themselves the best chance, right? They didn't give themselves the best chance to succeed because either they didn't have enough money put away to allow them to succeed because they didn't have enough, like they ended their job all of a sudden and now they don't have any income and they're relying on the income from their business. Or they said, I'm going to save up for the next 3 years in order to give myself 6 months off my job to be able to make that work. Well, yes, if it works in the next 6 months, great. But if not, then what's the plan? And a lot of people do take longer than like 6 months. So I think there's a real reason for maybe having an extra job alongside your photography business when you're first starting. Because I think you've got to give yourself the best chance to succeed. And if you are someone who is stressed by the income that you're not going to get from your business straight away, then having another job is great. I think there are kind of two schools of thought to this, in that one person will say, well, you're way better off if you just throw 100% of your energy into that thing. And I used to wholeheartedly believe this as well, that if you just threw yourself 100% in, that it would all work for you. Because I did this, right? When I first started, I didn't have any other plan. I just threw myself in and I gave myself a year. End of the year, it hadn't worked out, right? I wasn't earning enough to be financially stable, right? Like I'm not just talking about being able to break even. I'm talking about earn an income because I need to survive, right? I wasn't earning enough to be able to break even, but then earn an income on top of that to be able to draw out of it. Like I didn't draw from my photography business for the first probably 2 years. Like I kind of broke even at that 12 to 18 month mark. But then to be able to actually draw from it, to earn an income from it, was probably like 2 years in. And so I said to myself a year in that I had to go and get a job. I had to go and get a part-time job in hospitality because I wasn't at a stage where I wanted to be able to throw this all in. Like I knew it was going to work. I just needed to give myself a longer horizon to drag it out. And I didn't want to be impacted in my business by making decisions based on financial stress, right? And I mean, the kinds of things would be like every day just making decisions based on how can I get my next client, right? And not making financial investments in my business because I couldn't afford to, right? So I was stagnant to a point where I wasn't earning anything because I didn't have any clients, but I couldn't invest in my business to advertise or invest to upgrade my gear or whatever because I didn't have any clients. And I still had overheads in my business. I still had other expenses and other like subscriptions that were happening. So I was draining myself, and every move I made would have to be to try to get a new client. And everything I earned from that new client would then go back into my business. And that's just a spiral of, well, you're never going to do anything over the top to really help you get any new clients. Like you're never going to go out there and organize a photo shoot for yourself. You're never going to do any work for free because you can't afford to do work for free. Right? You can't afford the time. You can't afford the energy, the effort to go and like travel to be able to do jobs for free, to build your portfolio, to then get advertising, because you need to earn off every single job. And being in that position where everything you do has to be to move the business forward is a very hard position to be in, right? Sometimes we can go too fast and try to accelerate everything, and we just end up burning out within the first year because we tried to plow through and we only gave ourselves 6 to 12 months to be able to make that work. Had you have just gone back from a full-time job, drop down to part-time, drop down to working 1 to 2 days a week, just to keep a little bit of income coming through the door, I think it would give you more time and actually you would probably succeed more. And so I've often gone to that now as being what I recommend for people is have a job that doesn't drain you of your energy. I think that's first and foremost very important. So it may be that you need to quit your job that you're at now and just have another part-time job, another like casual job that you can have on the side that's not going to drain you of your energy. Like if you hate your job that you're in right now, end it because it's probably draining you of your energy, and start something else that's just 1 to 2 days a week. That is enough, that's going to be that stable income every week that you know you're going to get. But you still have energy when you walk away from that to work on your photography business or work on your creative business. And also that you don't enjoy that job enough to stay in it, right? It has to be something that you don't really enjoy, but you could kind of get by with. Like it's an admin job, you're working in hospitality, you're working like retail. It's not something that you love, but it brings in an income and you can walk away from it and not be drained. Like you don't want that to be a really hard, intense job that you walk home exhausted every day. Like you want it to be a pretty easy breezy job, but it's not something you can see yourself in forever, so that you want to get into your photography more, so that you want to slowly ease out of that business. Because if you enjoy that more, well, then maybe you should go and do that, right? If you're in a position where you enjoy your full-time job more, well, then it's okay just to do your photography part-time. And there isn't anything that ever says that you can't do your photography part-time. If you just want to do your photography business on the side, if you want to do a few family photography jobs on the weekends, that's totally fine. Like there isn't anything wrong with that. There isn't anything wrong with having photography as a hobby either. But if you're someone who wants to turn it into their full-time business, give yourself the best chance to be able to make that work and slowly transition out of that other job as you start to pick up more income. But don't just give yourself 12 months and say, if it hasn't worked in 12 months, then it's all over and I have to go back to another job. Because all of that work you did in that 12 months to sort of learn and understand things is all suddenly gone. And I know some people need a sort of deadline to give themselves, which is very important, right? You should be giving yourself these deadlines along the way, but it shouldn't be an all or we're out type of situation. It should be like, well, at the end of the 12 months, if it hasn't worked, well, yes, then I go back and get a part-time job, but I continue to do it. I continue to grow because otherwise I'm just throwing away everything I did for the past year. I think we've got to be able to be comfortable to do that so that we're not making decisions out of a place of financial stress, because that is the worst place to make any decisions from, because all of a sudden you'll go to do a job, right? I've heard this example heaps of times before from people. They've gone and photographed a wedding before and they've only taken along one camera with them, which I think is a cardinal sin, like taking one camera along to any job, because that camera could all of a sudden break, right? And if it breaks during a job and you haven't got any other gear on you, then what do? All of a sudden you look really bad. You can't do that again, especially in wedding photography when you can't go back and do that whole sort of day again. You shouldn't be taking a chance on that. But people will do it because they can't afford to buy gear or they can't afford to hire gear for the day. I'm like, no, like, yes, you may not earn a lot because you don't own gear, but you need the gear to do the job, right? And these are the things that people don't foresee in the start. It's like, you actually need a lot more gear than you realize. You only need it for this one day. So yes, you may just hire it for the one day or however long you need it for, but you're going to use the income that you got from the job to hire the gear. So really you're not going to earn anything from the job at all. And so a lot of people's headspace is, well, I'm not going to hire the gear because I need to earn from this job. If you're doing things out of a place of needing that financial security, then you're going to make mistakes. Then you're going to open yourself up for things to go wrong and for you to not be able to deliver on that job. Therefore, you're not going to get referrals. Therefore, people are going to know that you're that person. And ultimately, you're going to blame yourself for it. And that's probably going to be worse in the long run, right? Don't make decisions out of a place of financial stress. Make sure that you are well looked after so that you give yourself the best chance to grow. I don't know how much more I can really say that, because I think it's so important. It's the only reason I'm still here today, is because I gave myself the chance to be able to make it work. I do truly hope you realize that this episode is just for me. And yes, this is the 100th episode of my podcast, but I'm still here creating this podcast just for me. It's the reason I started it, is because I knew I needed to hear these things. And sometimes being able to say these things out loud helps me, but hopefully it helps you as well. And the number 7 on my list of things that I think is holding you back is that you're trying to please other people. And I think ultimately, like, kind of wrapped up in that is that you're not the person who can say no. If you can't say no to people, sometimes it will hurt you. Like, yes, you need to be able to be comfortable to say yes to a lot of jobs in the beginning. You need to give yourself space, and this is why some people say having that other job on the side isn't the best thing, because you don't have the time to say yes. I think that's why you need a flexible job. Like if you're working in hospitality, a job where if a photography gig comes up on a Tuesday, you can just drop that job for the day. You can just call in sick to that job to be able to go and take that job in photography, because you know you need the experience. You can't put yourself in a position where your part-time job is stopping you from doing photography. Like, you've got to have a call where you can say, hey, I'm not going to go to that job today. I'm not going to go into my part-time job today because I need to go and take this photography job. And so you need to be able to say yes to a lot of things when you're starting. You need to give yourself space to say yes to a lot of things. But as you grow, you can't continue to say yes to everything. And the real struggle of being an artist is that we want to do everything. And I kind of touched on this before in that in being able to have your style and being able to be set on what it is that you do and what it is that you offer is really important. Ultimately, we need to say no to a lot of things to find that thing that we want to say yes to. And I was like this when I was first starting, in that there were so many different photography jobs that I enjoyed, right? I enjoyed a lot of different things. I transitioned from doing landscape photography and travel photography as a hobby into how can I make that a business? And then I did headshot photography, I did family photography, I did newborns, I did like events before, I did portraiture, I did couples photography engagements, I did weddings. I enjoyed a large majority, beside like family photography. I enjoyed a large majority of those things, but I had to pick one. I had to pick something that I was going to do so that I knew my energy was headed in the right direction, and so that other people knew what it is that I did, right? And still to this day, I get opportunities to go and do other different things, and I'm definitely in a completely different space now where I have more ability to do things. But it's like, what are you going to say no to? In terms of jobs, but in terms of also your clients as well. Like when a client comes to you and says, hey, can we get an extra hour in there just for free? Are you going to be like, yeah, that's fine? Or are you going to like charge them for that? You know, when a client pulls out on you the day before a photo shoot, are you going to be the person who enforces the cancellation policy, or are you going to give them their like a money back? Are you going to be able to set boundaries on your clients and say, no, this is what I deliver. I'm not delivering anything more than that. And be really sure on your boundaries with your clients. Are you going to be really sure on what it is that you offer in your style, right? And not change your style for clients. Rather than saying, hang on, I'm happy to do this job in a completely different style, wouldn't you rather say, I can refer you on to someone else because this is my style and this is what I do really well? Of course, there are times where we can be flexible, but I think the ones who succeed know the boundaries and are comfortable to say no to everything because they realize they can't do everything. I truly believe you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Like anything you put your mind to, you can achieve, but you can't do everything. You've got to be able to cut some things out, okay? And again, we all have to pick and choose what it is that we do. We can't do everything. It's just the way things are. But sometimes being choosy and picking the things that we do allows us to be really specialized in one thing, allows us to become really good at one thing, right? And sometimes you may have to take a bit of time off from one particular thing to do another thing really well and then sort of come back. I really struggle to kind of compartmentalize all the things that I do. I've kind of been able to set up these systems over the years to know what things that I do, because I do have a lot like happening. But I sometimes have to take a bit of time off from one thing in order to start a new thing and then come back and then kind of go back and forth between them rather than trying to do everything all at one time. I think you need to be able to protect your energy and be able to say no to people, be able to set those boundaries with other people. And it comes back to trying to please everyone. Like you're not going to please everyone. Again, when it comes to creating online, you're not going to please everyone. You need to be able to set boundaries in what am I trying to achieve here, right? What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to get new clients, or am I just trying to make all my friends and family think that I'm a cool person? If you're trying to get clients, then no, it probably should be more strategic and you don't really care what people think because you know it's working for you. Like sometimes the people who just do the same thing every single day have been way more successful than the people who chop and change just to do things that they enjoy. And that ultimately comes down to knowing that they've got these boundaries in place, that they can be creative within this little sort of circle, but they can't do everything, right? They've chosen their one thing and they can be creative within that, but they can't do it all. They can't be creative here one day, be over here one day, trying this new job one day, this and other thing. They've got to pick one thing. You can be creative within that, but that's your one thing. And then slowly that expands over time. And I think when you're starting, you should start with one thing. We can't do everything when we're starting. Like I added things on as I went. But if you're not good at one thing first, you don't allow yourself to then grow onto a new thing and add things on, add new skills. Like again, I've been very conscious to not offer videography over the years. Like it is something that a lot of clients ask me for. I kind of have the skills in that area, but I don't have any interest to. And I think I could either grow my skills as a photographer and do other things on the side, like creating content and hosting this podcast and educating, or I could spend that effort and time to go and learn how to become a videographer and add that on for my clients. It's either or. I can't do both. And ultimately, I had to pick and choose which one I wanted to do. And I don't have a lot of interest in being a videographer, so I've chosen to hone my skills as a photographer and learn how to do flash photography because that was something that I really wanted to do and add on. But so many people when they're starting are trying to spread themselves to do everything. They're offering photography, but they're not that good of a photographer yet because they've just started. They'll do video for people if they ask. They'll also do like content creation. They're like happy to do branding work for other people. They're happy to do a bunch of different things, but they haven't become specialized at one thing just to say, no, this is the one thing that I do. Here's how much it costs. How firm are you on your boundaries really sort of dictates how long you'll be in business and how successful you'll be, because you've got to be firm on what it is that you do. I truly think that spreading yourself too thin has been the kind of death of a lot of people. And yes, there may be examples out there where it's worked. Yes, some people are really skilled and can do a heap of things. But a lot of people, when they're just starting, it will end your business because you've tried to do too many things and you've spread yourself too thin and people don't know what it is that you do. And ultimately, you're not allowing yourself the time to practice that one thing and become really good at one thing. So that is just my little piece of advice for people just starting. It's focus on one thing, be comfortable to say no to other things, turn work down if it isn't aligning with what it is that you do, and maybe prioritize going out there and being more mindful of the work that you do, but also doing that work when you don't feel like it. Like if you get a job next week, if you get an inquiry to do a family photography job and that's not something you do, you can maybe turn that work down. But then maybe also go and organize a photo shoot with a friend because you really want to get into headshot and branding photography. Like that's what you do. Then go and practice that. Don't wait till you get an inquiry for it. Go and practice that. If you're comfortable to turn this down, you've got to have something else that you're doing and really understand why it is you're turning it down because you really want to do this one thing. So don't just accept everything. Make sure that you're in charge of what it is that you do because ultimately you started this business to do one thing. Don't let other people sort of dictate what it is that you do. If you're still here after listening to me ramble for an hour, I hope that was an interesting episode. I hope some of those things hit home for you. I hope some of those things you have been working on, and maybe there were some things in there that you realize you need to work on as well. Because I certainly need to work on all of those things as we go. You know, there are such times where I think that I tend to please people too much. Or there are times when I don't believe in the work that I do. Or there are times where I'm now sometimes waiting to act on something until I know that it's worked for another person, rather than just being that person who jumps out there and just says, I don't care how this goes, I'm going to try to make it work. And I'm going to learn more by trying than I ever could off anyone else. So hopefully this was really helpful for you. And I feel like I'm in a very privileged position to be able to be 100 episodes into this podcast and still be turning up here and having these conversations and sharing ideas. And I've only gotten to this position of being able to come up with these things or to have these reflections because I've tried things, because I've been comfortable to put things out there in the world, because I've been comfortable to have these conversations when there wasn't anyone there. For anyone who's been here from the beginning, the first 30 episodes of this podcast were audio only. And then I added on video at episode 31, I think I added video, or maybe 30. And then I went through to episode 56. So I did the first 56 episodes by myself. And that's all in season 1 of the podcast. It's still there, and I still like to leave it there because I think it's just such an important reminder of starting before you feel like you're the right person, or before you feel like you're ready, or before you get permission from someone else. Yes, I didn't have a big audience for the podcast when I first started. I think I averaged in that first year, I released an episode every week for a year. And in that first year, I think I averaged 10 downloads per episode, right? For 50 episodes, I think I had 500 downloads. But in the first 10, I got 3 per episode. And they were all probably friends and family. And I don't know how many people got to the end of each episode because it really was just me sitting there and talking about the things that I really enjoyed, or the things that I'd come up against in the week before that, or things that I'd had to overcome in my business. And I wanted to share that with someone else to help them. But equally, I've genuinely believe that you don't understand something until you can explain it to someone else. And so if I didn't know the solution, but that was just me brainstorming what I thought the solution was, right? And it was surprising how many people I would hear from in those days. I had such a small audience, but I would hear from people and said that they really enjoyed the way that I put that together. And so I knew I was onto something, and I knew that I could only improve, right? Of course, I wasn't as good as I am now. I'm still not as good as where I'll be in 2 to 3 years' time. But I wouldn't know that had I not continued. And I was very grateful to be able to bring the podcast back. I did have a break after those first 56 episodes, and I brought it back in a new direction because I wanted to start talking to other people. The reason I started the show was to talk about my creative journey, but I wanted to hear about other people's creative journeys as well. And I really gain a lot from that, and I think we can learn so much from other people and what they've done and what they've tried. And so I was blessed to be able to have an audience where I could reach out to people and they would be comfortable to come on my show and kind of speak about their journey. And I still feel that to this day, where I probably hold myself back from reaching out to people because I don't feel like they'll be okay to be interviewed or okay to have this conversation. But everyone I reach out to is always really happy to be on the show and to sort of share their journey with the audience. And I'm very grateful to be able to be where I am today, like 100 episodes in is crazy. In the last few sort of seasons, obviously we've done 44 episodes now of those interview style podcasts, and I'm trying to interject more ones like this where I just am here by myself, because I do think that there is a strength to being able to sit down and talk about your ideas for an hour. It's not something that's easily done, and I'm sort of out of the habit of doing it because I now interview so many people all the time that's become a more stronger skill set of mine, is understanding how to put together a story and ask questions of people and reflect and sort of draw things out in conversation. That is something that I'm trying to work on. Like, the reason that I started the podcast as well was to get better at having conversations, because I knew I needed to improve my personal skills with other people, because I wanted to be a photographer. I needed to work with people, and a big part of it is being a good people person, and being able to speak to people is really important. And being able to know how to convey something to someone else, or to be able to tell people a story in a way that is actually engaging, is really important. And so I wanted to be able to do that on a podcast, and so I started it. And then I started interviewing people because I wanted to get better at understanding their stories and understanding how to ask questions and how to be interested in other people, right? Because I think that's a really important skill that we all should know how to do, is how to be interested in other people. Even when they come from a completely different background to where we're at, understanding how to be interested in people is really important. So I've been really blessed to be able to do that and be able to grow the audience on this podcast. And if you're still here, I really appreciate you being here on this episode, on episode 100 of the podcast, but also for being here for all the other episodes that have come before and all the episodes that will come after this. We've got a really big season coming in, season 4, and I hope you've been enjoying season 4 of the podcast. It's been a really interesting process to sort of change things up a little bit, and the way that I do things and the way the style of the episodes have been, just trying to learn and trying to reflect on, like, well, why would people tune into these episodes of the podcast? Like, removing it from me, removing it from what I just think is good, ultimately having a look from an outside perspective and saying, well, why would people tune into these episodes? And so I've started to kind of make the episodes each be about their own specific thing rather than just about the creator. We're going to try to give a different perspective on each episode about a different thing that has really worked for that creator. And so hopefully moving forward, each episode is a standalone thing about one particular style or one particular thing that creator has overcome, and being able to give a really good insight into that one thing. And I've been really just enjoying just hopping into the conversation and trying to give sort of value from the start, and not sort of dragging out the intro, but just hopping straight into a conversation. And hopefully you guys are enjoying being able to hear those conversations and hear people being open. And I've been very blessed to have so many guests who are just comfortable to come on and be really open from the get-go. And that really makes me feel happy about what I've been able to create here. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this every week, and thank you so much for being here, because this is one of the best things that I get to do every week, is have these podcast conversations. If you've enjoyed the episode at all, please let me know. On YouTube, let me know, leave a comment down below this episode. But if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, any other audio platform, send me a message on Instagram to let me know you've been listening to this podcast. I've started the new Instagram account for the podcast. It's called @MyCreativePodcast. That's the Instagram account for the podcast. So I'm going to be sharing a lot more clips there. If you want to message me there, or on my main Instagram account, just at Mike Jeffrey Photo, feel free to send me a message there. I'd love to hear from you guys. But if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave us a rating or review over there. It does really help grow the show. It's one of the only ways that we can grow the show on audio platforms. Obviously, YouTube, we have more of the algorithm actually sharing the episodes to new people, which has been really helpful. And it's been nice to be able to put those episodes out and to be able to get a whole new audience really of people on YouTube over the past 12 months, which has been really nice because it's not something that we prioritized before that. And we've been starting to kind of grow the show over there really more. So if you're over there, leave me a comment on the video to let me know you were watching. And if you enjoyed this episode or you think there was anything that could have been discussed, I'd love to make individual episodes on so many different things that we talked about today. I think each of one of these could be unpacked in a whole episode, and I'd love to have these conversations with other people as well about some of the things that they've done to overcome it. So if you've got any ideas for guests as well that you'd love to hear me talk about some of these things with, do let me know, because I'm always open to new and interesting conversations with people who are comfortable with opening themselves up and having these type of chats. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a good week, and I'll be back again next week with a very special episode. But until then, talk to you guys later.